Hi Speechies, it's Sarah, and I want to talk to you a little bit about when your client needs to take a break from speech. And it might be kind of counterintuitive to think about, why would my client need a break? This is actually a really great kind of like strategy to help a client that maybe has hit a plateau, refocus, figure out what's their why. Why are they doing this? And maybe take a break for that kind of reflection. So you could take a break when it comes to doing speech, especially in like a private practice or an outpatient setting. It can be much easier for a client to take a break compared to like the school setting, because the paperwork, the IEP protocols, none of that really aligns as well to having a break, but it still can. I can tell you how I would run that in a school setting, but I'll tell you in a second. But that break can be so vital for that client to kind of really decide if this is even making sense for them. And so why would a client need a break? If we're finding that a client is not motivated and there's a total lack of progress. Sometimes there's even resistance. So it's not just demotivation. They actually actively resist coming to therapy. And, no client that's like resistant and really unmotivated is going to make the kind of gains that we really want to see. We want a client that's engaged in the process, that it's meaningful for them to come to speech, that they're getting something out of it, and then they see that growth. So I suggested recently, like within the past year, we had a client where we pushed pause on speech therapy. And what was going on was the client had been working on R. And they were also quite young. So they were, I'm going to say second grade, although I can't remember the exact grade. They've been working on R for a long time. Actually, which you also think, if you're a speech pathologist, you're probably thinking that seems a little young. And it might have been that student was working on multiple other sounds and then R was only left. And even though a lot of times we don't qualify somebody for R in the school-based setting until third grade or after, in this situation, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong, that's just what happens sometimes, the client was still working on R and they weren't really making any progress. And so sometimes you see like speech pathologists like try to rush it and like try to put a child that doesn't have an R, let's work at the word level, read this sentence for me. And you're just trying to spruce up therapy so that you're not sitting there for 30 minutes just doing the R, and the child isn't able to make any headway. So in that situation, I did actually recommend to the family, hey, I would like to pause therapy and see if the child can grow and mature, both physically to see how their anatomy changes as they get bigger. And then also because I'm trying to avoid client burnout and frustration, because working on the same thing and then hitting a wall like literally for a year is not helping the client or me. So we pushed pause, and as of the filming of this video, this client is still not receiving therapy because the client, needs to mature and grow and then get that buy-in. Because when you're in second grade or relatively that age, you may not be as aware of your speech issues, and maybe in a couple of years, not only will you be bigger, you'll be motivated, you'll be aware, and you'll want to work at it. So I think that can be really powerful. And it's really not just for like children, clients that are kids. It's also for adults. Once they hit that plateau, it might be a really good idea to stop. And, this is kind of counterintuitive. It feels like we just do the speech therapy until somebody reaches their goals. But really, we have to think long-term here. Is it really beneficial? Is there meaningful growth? Is it meaningful for the client right now? Because there's so many times where, maybe the client has a speech sound distortion, like a slushy S or a lisp, and it can be really hard for them to think about like going on and on when they're not making any progress. So we definitely want to make sure we're doing right by the client and also really using our time the most wisely we can so that we're impacting students that have the most pressing issues, that they are getting the most important spots in our schedule. And just to wrap up, I do want to share how you can do a break in speech in the schools. One thing I've done is put kids on consultative services. Now, this would be a student that has a different primary eligibility than speech. This would be a student that maybe they are receiving other services but under the label of learning disabilities. They could be receiving, under OHI or whatever, but it's when speech isn't their primary, because it's a lot harder and practically impossible to put a client on consult when their primary eligibility is speech. Because when the primary eligibility is speech, they're supposed to be receiving goals and minutes, everything focused on, moving forward. But if you could put somebody on consult, you could say, I check in. And the thing that's so nice about consult is you define it. It could be 10 minutes a week that you check in and talk to the teacher. It could be 30 minutes a month that you maybe, talk to the teacher. Again, there's a lot of consultative models. There's really no client contact. Or you could just lower the minutes, maybe 15 minutes a month for a check-in to make sure that the client is still at the same level they were when you decided to take a break. So these are some considerations, and I hope this has given you some food for thought when you think about when the client needs to take a break, because it can be like a really powerful thing to kind of turn things around so that they don't feel like they're working on something that they're making no growth towards. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.